I told this to Michael Jackson. I said, "Look, man, I keep singing like you're doing. Y'all gonna be dead one day." A few months later, Diana Ross came down, was doing some talent show. He was like reviewing it and stuff like that, and she heard him sing, and he asked him to do a demo thing to Barry Gordy, which is about 200 miles away from Gary, and the rest of it is history. Don't never let AI or anything like that invent new. It's like, because we never did. We'll never know. Some people like AI and let it do all the things. So don't let it. They don't. That is one thing I'm really worried about. Remember now, we're two African Americans talking about quantum and what we do. You're doing as well. Electronic vehicle that wasn't available in 15, 20, 30 years ago. We didn't been doing that. So there is an evolution of change. I'm not going to see that evolution of change. But people that look like you and me want to see objectives that some may think that are unreachable. They're really not. It's totally up to you. Like knowledge, you tell me what you do and what you do with it. Quantum optimizes that information. Classical computing is like your finger. Quantum computing is like your arm and your brain. Takes the information from the finger.
Today, I'm talking with Joe Reddix, founder and CEO of the Reddix Group, who has one of the most unique perspectives in technology. Joe's been in IT for 6 decades. He literally started when computers filled entire rooms, and now he's implementing quantum AI solutions. He's advised the Pentagon, holds patents for the early internet days, and believes we are on the verge of a quantum computing evolution that would change everything. Joe, thank you for joining me.
Well, Frederic, it clearly is a pleasure. Obviously, quantum artificial intelligence and IT is one of my passions. And kind of like is that you can read comic books, Iron Man, Superman, and things like that. And what I liked about Iron Man is even though he had a bump record, he figured out ways to move through his adversity and things like that. Became a thought leader in advanced technology and with computers and all. Well, I used to read a lot of comic books and got deep into the technology, but was the comic books and thought that, something this could be a good field to be in. So I've always been interested in information and information management. Now, I got into it in 1960s, Gary, and so when I decided to look at where I wanted to go, I said, something? My brother was in the Navy. I wanted to go into the Navy. I tested into two things. I could have been a controlman or into what they call machine accounting, which became data processing technician. I was stationed in Hawaii, place called the Kania Tunnel, which is the same place where Snowden stole all that information. So I got a real good feel for why cybersecurity information was important. And back then, it was early stage computers like the IBM 1401 and things like that. EDC 1604 and those types of computers was very, very, very new. But so there was an enormous growth opportunity where this field was going to go. Being able to both gather and share knowledge. That's what created the passion in the field. That's why I've been in it for 58 plus years now.
That's fascinating. So tell me more about how you began your career. You say you started in the Navy and then you became an entrepreneur.
I started my career what I wanted to do. We wanted to be a fighter pilot. And I wanted to go into, infantry and things like that. That was during the Vietnam. And I was fascinated by the natural patterns and things like that. He took one choice. My other choice was to do it. What I learned early on was how to research. Back then, there was a lot of information, but you could get certain things, whether it's from the newspapers or certain publications or like magazines like Ebony and Gap and things. And I didn't see a lot of minority interesting which even in the Navy was on the first one in the Navy as far as African American is concerned. But it piqued my interest because of the massive amount of knowledge you can get using the tool being the applications like universe software and things like that. And I just simply 60 years.
So something that struck me is you've watched technology evolve for nearly 6 decades. When you started in 1967, what did you think the future would look like? And how were you wrong?
Back then, it was like you're not wearing shoes. It was kind of like I said this in another podcast, but the point of where we were then with entrepreneurs and things like that was so far removed from where we are now. And it was a smart move to focus on it because it allowed me to gather information about this subject. I wanted to learn planning. I wanted to learn how to fix the elusive motor and all of that. Knowledge, technology, being at the forefront of the birth of the internet really helped me to understand where I can get the knowledge and to get detailed for things. Really being able to look at where this technology could take you and where you can learn was basically up to you. Where there was nobody to stop me. Now, you fast forward, you see a lot of the technology being used both positively and negatively as far as both quantum. I tell people the technology we're talking about can do three things. It can create, it can destroy, and it can do both at the same time. Now, humanity really have to take a look at this stuff more deeply than I think it is now. Well, when you ask what are some of the issues, the segmentation of this level of knowledge, especially where it can help you grow, it can help you develop entrepreneurship and things like that, sometimes seems to be stagnant and not necessarily as culturally diverse as it should be. Okay? Information is not created by one segment of society, it's created by all segments of society. And access to that information is being not limited, it can be open to all segments of society, no matter their economic stage in life or whatever, or their background. This is the way we grow. And this country, being a very diverse environment, has grown tremendously because it has taken ideas from a very diverse culture, which I think is very, very important. Sometimes it looks like we may be moving away from that, which I think can be very detrimental to overall both domestic and global growth. And for example, you wouldn't expect me to be a computer. I graduated from the University of Phoenix with honors, but I went to Purdue and Indiana. But I got my degree from the University of Phoenix, where I learned in that environment project management, how to deal with diverse ways of looking at things. Now, my point is that needs to stay the same. You don't get that kind of, if you want that kind of communication perhaps between the human aspect, the technology aspect to grow, not to shrink. And sometimes it looks like that in certain cultures that might be shrinking versus growing. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes. So the development, you went to school from the University of Phoenix, and
Have to do in Indiana.
so what did you study in Purdue?
Purdue, the engineering school, Purdue. I went to it in Northwest Indiana. We had a campus. I went to Indiana University of Bloomington. I went to those two schools. I got my degree from the University of Phoenix. I graduated with a 3.88 and an information system.
Okay.
But it taught me how to work with people because it's more teaming part. Going to Phoenix was more of a teaming perspective. You had different types of people on your team. It's an art to be able to deal with all of that. Like I told them, I'm an A person. This is what we're going to try to get out of this. And all of them averaged over 3.6, 3.7, 3.8 in the GPA. I got a 3.88. Would have been a 4.0. I'm not going to get it.
Yeah, that 4.0 is always messed
No,
up.
no,
It's always one project.
but that's okay. I did all right.
Yeah, that 3.8, 3.6 is good.
No, 3.88.
So
I'm a slow, like 1, 2 from 4. But again, when you're looking at learning, and learning is like huge. And to people in my family, we are learning kind of family. Most of them are educators, teachers, and things like that. My uncle, Dick Reddix, was the president of Jackson State in Jackson, Mississippi for 28 years. So there's a lot of that education going on in my family. And the few that went into technology, others went into the doctoring. My son is a lawyer. He graduated from UMBC and George Washington Law School. Most of the family, again, was teacher related. They taught kindergarten on up, including high school. But I decided that I wanted to get into computers, so I teach, but not what they do. I teach more of the AI and quantum, and I do it over at Fort Meade High School to the 11th and 12th graders with white papers, things that I've done by communicating with the White House and the type of organizations I belong to. For example, and this is very key, I belong to the Quantum Security Alliance, which is focused on the quantum secure environment and the strategic uses of quantum and artificial intelligence. The founder of the Quantum Security Alliance was the Chief Information and Security Officer at the Air Force. So we have a real nice tight group, high level group that deals with defense, commercial, and kind of like a very good ecosystem because we all gel and we get along. I'm writing a paper right now with them on this is really, really fun. And picking nuclear waste, for example, and they call it say heavy water. You know, you can have that heavy water become a storage vessel for information, just like you have a floppy disk and stuff like that. We're looking at perfecting a nuclear waste strategy so that we can digitize that environment for those long-term storage of information. Nuclear waste coming from reactors, okay? That's just one project. Now, how you can do that is using quantum mechanics and quantum chemistry and all to figure out how to read the information, how to encode the information into water and all of that. Now,
Hmm.
it's a very, very good project because it's extremely effective when you can use water to store data. Water is everywhere, at least so far. Then the other part of that is that we've developed the primary my design, what we call a quantum sensor foundry. I mean, let you have a foundry like you used to have in the old days, a sealed foundry. Well, we've developed a strategy to create a foundry that creates quantum sensors. And quantum sensor can sense things like changes in weather patterns, changes in the depth of water, magnetism, changes in magnetic changes, and all that. That goes through it short. We're looking at trying AI and quantum using this foundry that will allow us to create the model for the future, allow us to create the innovative techniques and strategies that potentially can be used by the medical field and science, principles and welcome, things like that. Now, how do we do it? This Advanced Research Project Agency, I'm on DARPA. DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, has what they call the ERIES um, systems. It's an expedited research implementation series that allows a vendor like me to tap into high-end technology like AI and quantum directly with the DoD through DARPA. So I'm already on a contract like that. The submission we made was for a antenna that replaces multiple antennas because it uses quantum capability. It's all Rybird atoms. I think I'm looking at short. When you can replace multiple antennas, whether it's ship, airplane, or whatever, with a single antenna that can do multiple things, that again is advanced technology. It's the major use of quantum and AI, for example. Those are the kind of projects that I work on.
Those are cool
Real cool.
projects.
Man, real cool.
They're so high level. Like if you had to explain it to somebody who's 12 years old, like to break it down, because there's a hype about AI going on, and this sounds so cool, but it seems like the barrier for entry is so high. Like maybe you need a PhD. How can you explain it to a young person so they can be inspired? And what's the path for them to get into to helping the project evolve?
Some of them is that we create, yeah, I didn't create that. When I'm doing my prompts and stuff like that, I use my technology. We created you. You didn't create this. So the way you explain it is, it's just not necessarily a mirror image of us. It uses kind of like how the brain works, and the brain works with these things, memory and all that, neurons and all that, store information up in the brain. But it does it by taking visual images for example. Like I can see your face now, you will always remember it, okay, the way it looks, that kind of thing. The way you look at technology, artificial intelligence and quantum, is look at where it started. The original technology was called, for example, called classical computing. Classical computing uses, you know, traditional, say, PC processing, your PC. It stores information. It can do certain things, for example, history data and all that kind of stuff. It is the classical environment that's limited by the types of um, chips and things like that that it uses. Okay, that's one layer, classical, before we are right now. Quantum is a similar environment, but an extremely higher level. And the key between the two, there's so much information one or the other can have. Classical can do a lot of work with a lot of information. Quantum is exponentially increase that. Okay, so
Okay.
when you combine the two information, like from your notebook and your tablet and all that kind of stuff, quantum optimizes that information. While classical computing is like your finger. Quantum computing is like your arm and your brain takes information from the finger. They can do a
Okay.
much better stuff with it now. While it's taking information from the finger, and your brain is still taking information from the foot, and the legs, the heart, and everything else. You see how the quantum is so important now, being brain,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they still work together. You need one that is traditional, getting the information into the system, then quantum takes it from there. And then it uses the quantum mechanics and quantum chemistry and all that to optimize information. And the way it does them is that it stores so much of it, and it works so much faster because of that like a better way, molecular level. About as low as you can go. That's where all the interaction, where everything is created, that kind of thing. That is really the best way to explain it because quantum and quantum go hand in hand. You're not going to replace classical with quantum. Classical and
Okay.
quantum will always have a marriage, and that's the real key. It's an evolution from classical to quantum. One is evolution from gathering the data to high-end performance of the data that was gathered.
Okay. So there's an evolution from classical to quantum, and quantum is like the evolution from the data to explaining the data.
Is maximizing the use of it. For example, that classical information that comes from multiple sources, quantum can take all those multiple sources and turn it into something that is meaningful. Okay, it
Okay.
can measure it, it can predict, and things like that. It can help simulate what would happen if you have this piece of information. Say, like your sister has a recipe, you have a recipe that's very similar.
Okay.
Analog environment, you put that into text. Text can be pumped into quantum. Quantum can say, your recipe is better than your sister's, and here's why.
All
You can
right.
take all that information and it can do it. So it's like, those are the key
Okay.
things you want to be able to do with data. You want to gather it and you want to optimize its use. That's what those two environments, platform and quantum, do. Gather the data and optimize the use of the data.
So I guess the evolution of that process is using AI to amplify quantum data analysis.
Okay, let's just go back to how it started. These things and just talk about like large language models, layered pieces of information. Okay, like
Okay.
steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up. Now,
Okay.
when you look at that and you say to yourself, what is in between steps 1 and 2? Is it step 1, 1.1, 1.3, 1.4, 1.5? See, when you really break it down like that, it opens up a whole new avenue of what that information means. Because now when you've broken the information down to smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller elements, right? And the quantum conveys all of that. And you're looking at all that information versus, like maybe 1 and 1. It's looking at 1 and a billion. And it's taking all that and instantaneously figuring out where the patterns and things fall. They're doing more. And a perfect example. If you look at artificial intelligence and a quantum computer, and say it's on a sensor the size of maybe a brain and you put that sensor in the body, and that sensor that is quantum and AI finds cancer in your body. Like without you having to go to the doctor or anything like that, you can make swallow something and it is able to communicate with us. But the idea of the sensor is looking at all these different things, and that's small. Then it reports that data back. And when it reports that data back, it can also, in that food chain, give examples of how that information about the cancer could be used.
Okay.
See my point? Now that means you don't have to go into the body, you don't have to cover anything like that. You use the sensor that you may swallow or it may be injected, and it gathers the information. When you look at the way they modernize dogs and being able to find when a dog is lost, they put a chip in the dog, and that chip is able to be read. It's like a sensor sitting there that you can read information from. It's encoded with information, but it's so small and it's so, we call it, capable of gathering information. And
Okay.
that's key. But then it makes sense having to do a lot of the old ways where you had to go to the doctor, multiple trips and all of that. The doctor can, can wave the phone over the sensor, and the sensor, could tell you, what's going on in the body. It's just like a Dextron, Dextron for diabetes, how you plug it into your arm and it communicates like with your phone.
Yes.
That Dextron is a sensor. It's picking up information and it's passing it on to, say, your phone, and your phone has an AI application that's figuring out what that information is, what the pros and cons are, and then it can also report it to your primary care physician. That's the kind of stuff that you're watching. Multiple technologies are integrated together to create multiple solutions based on the requirement. So a doctor can sit there and read all about my blood pressure and things like that. It can also be able to, over periods of time, like years, draw patterns,
Okay.
and it can simulate. It can simulate, for example, conditions in the body that may be able to help you improve the cancer, kind of stuff. All without giving you any medicine or anything like that. This is the level of technology you can, you know what I mean? Starting off the little grains of rice all the way to reporting, analyzing, and things like that. That's where we're at right now.
Wow. And how long that process going to be? It seems like it saves a lot of times.
Tremendous amount of time. School is there right now. What quantum is doing is being able to take that information now, which is from way more than just 4 or 5 sources. It can act on data that are coming in 1,000 sources simultaneously, for example. So you're matching what was in your body as far as your cancer, whatever, diagnosis at that sensor level, and match it with 1,000 others. You know what I mean? Now that data is developed in a profile, not just of you, but for example, of like patients like you. That's how it creates for recommendation and decision. So some people have this very similar problem, slightly different here and here and here, whatever. And it knows all of that. It knows all of that. That's the application side. That's the AI. The AI is sitting there saying, let's put all this stuff together. The quantum just makes it like the brain level. Like I'm talking to you right now. I don't have to wait for the words to come out. I'm already thinking about it.
Real
That and
time.
also your next question right now. That is the AI and quantum, for example, working together. You know how it works?
Yes.
One's optimizing what the other was picking up, what the other one's picking up, and says, you know something? This guy right here just gave me a good idea. Let me see if this will work down here. Electronically, it can dispense medicine. It can tell the emergency tech what may have happened when you call for an ambulance or something like that. And they run their device over it, and it tells you that a few seconds, a few minutes ago, you may have had a mild heart attack. All that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
See now, because it's made it affordable. By the way, forget about you having any kind of security. Once you go digital, your stuff is out there now. They know when the last time you used toilet paper, how much. They know where you bought your candy bar.
Man, we are
It's right here.
screwed. We are
It's right
screwed.
here.
No more privacy, huh?
No, not like in those days, because of the utility of the tools, you had to give something up. You don't give it up. Make a long story short. Just look at how the box stores like Walmart and all. You may be a mile away and say, "Oh, you're going to Walmart. Okay, let me know. You got to get some more toilet paper and you got to get some more soap and all this kind of stuff. By the way, we got it on sale just for you.
Oh my God. My
It's the same
God.
for the other thing. You know, if I have some condo bonds and say, "Oh, it's like you can have bonds because you buy you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Electronically."
Wow. This is scary. But I want to switch gears a little bit because I'm an aspiring entrepreneur and
Okay.
I saw you having a small company competing with bigger companies and winning. So, Joe, you've kept like your company lean. And what I want to ask is, how do you turn small size into an advantage?
Good, good,
Because
good.
you're solving problems on a bigger scale, even though your company is lean. Like, all the things you'll be talking about right now are so cool. It's so big. How do you?
I never had a small passion. I've always had a big passion. So
Yeah.
the big passion allowed me to come up with ways that satisfy my big passion. Worked a large corporation back in 29 Airlines, Wang Laboratories, BNE, General Dynamics. When I think about my big passion, once you develop a distinctive passion for something, you really, 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 the way of getting that at a higher level becomes natural because you have a passion for it. You learn it real quick. I got a photographic memory when it comes to computers. Follow my program almost. And I do remember it. But that's like decades ago. When I had the passion, it allowed me to develop a way to move around a lot of the obstacles. I had to come up with the alternative to the prime cell contract. Back in the Obama administration, when they were looking at healthcare as a drug, they said, really look at a peer-to-peer network versus the prime sub or master slave. Now, prime sub is usually the prime contractor and you have subcontractors to do the work. Given the amount of knowledge required, even large corporations don't have to go out and bring people in. We looked at a new business model, so I created a peer-to-peer network model. Well, in my model, peer-to-peer, meaning that my level as CEO in the Reddix group is still with anybody else, whether it's Lockheed Martin or whoever. The level of knowledge transfer between the entities is very important. It doesn't matter if you are a multi-billion-dollar corporation. You find me people like the Google guys, Meta, like Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and all of that, learn how to orchestrate talent, how to bring talent into their vision. And as an entrepreneur, that's what I've done. To do this by myself, you just know what to do. Knowing who can the beauty is once you create a network, your value proposition through your network. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur talking to other entrepreneurs. They're looking at what's the value proposition. That's what you really want to know. What is the value proposition? That's what you want to get out of it. Now, how you elevate that value proposition is finding like-minded people. Well, with me, I belong to organizations that work on some artificial intelligence and things like that. Now, since I've been in so long, a lot of the white papers and the information ties in with what they have. That's how you stay cool. Like I said before, a 16-year-old to write an algorithm and in 3, 4 years, selling it, you know, a whole company, $500 million. That happens. And with AI and quantum and things like that, you have an enormous ability to level the playing field. So you can play the big players. Now, they made it the little players. So the level of you being a little player, if you elevate it, you become more of a big player. You don't have 50,000 employees or anything like that, but you don't need it. You need to have a straight interface and a knowledge of things like artificial intelligence. Strategy. Now, strategy is really key to use all that technology. If you have a strategic vision of where you want to go with it, as an entrepreneur, what you want to do, that ties to your passion. You know what I mean? Gives you direction. The other one gives you the reason for the direction. Now, with me, I'm strategy and passion. keep those two together in an umbrella dealing with artificial intelligence and quantum. You see how now it's a fit strategy of, then when I use my passion. Strategically, I can use my passion to make a lot of money. The most I've ever made was $450 an hour. Okay? Now, not bad, but
Bad.
yeah, the first, 4 years and a half years buying by somebody. Okay? That's what you want to do nowadays because I honestly don't want to be Lockheed or anything like that. I'll just take the half billion and have to retract a little bit. One of the things I wanted to be, and this is what I tell people, I'm an entrepreneur, I said I never wanted to be just enough multi-billionaire because I never did. I got around before Bill Gates and Larry and all of them, Larry Ellison and all of them. But I wanted to be the top dog. When I got in this field, I said, man, I'm really going to and I was, but of course I knew that maybe being a minority, there could be some things. And yes, there was. The way I got away from it is to realize where I wanted to go, not where somebody else wanted me to go. Okay? Once you do that and you put the umbilical for it, and for me, I think what was behind door number two was the vast amount of knowledge. Now I'm at legacy, I'm 10%. When that knowledge was really happening, I looked into it now. I wanted to be a job. When you look at people like Elon Musk, he wanted to be him before he really didn't happen. And I didn't worry about it because the guy gave me a very good alternative form, an enormous amount of knowledge, which still today I still know. He makes stolen. And as an entrepreneur, whether I want to go into medicine or transportation or defense or education, it just opened up so many different doors, okay? Which means you don't pay with this level for what you want to do. You may decide, oh, I want to build exotic cars. Well, 2 years later, you may want to build exotic foundries that build exotic cars and technology, that kind of stuff. So in other words, you grow, you figure out that this knowledge allows you to have a lot of flexibility. That's what you want as an entrepreneur. You want action. You don't want to necessarily sell just to the DOD or the federal government. Make your business and your strategies global gives you an enormous amount of opportunity. In other words, you're not stymied. You can go anywhere you want. And then using the internet and technology and stuff allow you to do this. See how one person can become a big person?
Yes. So you said like a small team, can out innovate giant with strategy, passion for you, for your example, quantum and AI. So what experience made you convinced of that before you knew you were going to be successful? What experience? Is there something that happened in your life that made you convinced of that and made you take the leap? Because at the same time, you left corporate stability in your 50s to start your own firm. There must have been like a burning desire to like, what did that decision really feel like? It's like a two-in-one combo question.
When you want to be a change agent, I always felt that you had a purpose in humanity. And when I got into computers, I saw a lot of moving pieces and I don't know where it was going. And I wanted to be a part of that. So what you do is you put yourself in those situations where you can become a part of it. I went to the White House, for example, under Bill Clinton. I got a picture of me and Bill Clinton. The thing is, you put yourself in those situations. You decide that, okay, I need this level of expertise. I need the expertise of how the presidents, you know, run the country and how they have focus and things like that. And that was one of the things I wanted to learn. And I did it through, you know, and in the White House, when I went it opened up with more knowledge of certain things that were going on behind the scenes, that I understood where the country was going as a whole. Their policy, policy is really key to an entrepreneur. You got to really pay attention to the policy can make or break you, but you can also use it as a leverage, like a shoehorn. Long story short, you're looking at ways to take those kinds of relationships that you learn from different people. Because everybody you meet can teach you something. Everybody you meet has a genius in them. They may not necessarily know what it is. It's there. And this one I looked at with everybody I met, there was something that was always positive that drew me to them. I'm drawn to people that are highly intelligent, they're adaptive with their um, where they want to go, they business sense and stuff like that. They want to learn from others, and you try to like build this strategy so that you don't reinvent the wheel and try to make the same mistakes that others have. So you really learn by this ecosystem, and this ecosystem is tied to information. And the technology allows you to take that ecosystem where it is, meaning it could be in the UK, it could be in Gary, Indiana, where I'm from. But all those different life experiences become part of how your entrepreneurship, in my opinion, is developed. I live 2 blocks from the Jackson 5. I didn't sing, I didn't dance.
Wow.
It's like 50 Cent and TV shows, but just because I didn't sing or dance and I didn't do the 50 Cent talent shows, I look back now and said there was a lot of talent came out of that environment. Now, 2 blocks away from the Jacksons. The thing I like about it is that they practiced and they did everything that father was kind of pushing them to do a lot of stuff. I like working with my hands. I like taking things apart. I used to take electric motors apart and put them back together just for fun of it. And I learned, shocked myself a few times, but I learned about how it, and then from that, mechanical mind, my father had a good toolkit and all that. When I saw with his toolkit, it's the same thing I did. I got a toolkit, physical tools, a toolkit. And what I put in that toolkit was totally up to me. If I got into the AI, like, and then it's going to be different. I still know how to put stuff together and take stuff apart. And that's exactly what I do with the AI and quantum. I put it together and take it apart. How I know how it works. You see how you use something that from your past to your future. My father was a head custodian, and my mother was a about as diverse as you can learn from both of them. That's where it started. Bad enough was reading the comic books, but man, he's talking about having a great foundation. There were good business sense in people. My mother had Psychology Today as a magazine, for the clients to come in. He used to bring them home because I asked it. I was 8 years
Mm-hmm.
old and I was reading. Didn't understand all the words, but she would explain it to me. I was 8 years old. I'm learning Psychology Today, the magazine, psychology and stuff. My mother's interpreting all the big words. My father is teaching me how to use my hands and all of that. And this is how it kind of like evolved to where I'm at.
Okay.
Very foundational being an entrepreneur. It's very foundational. You just don't put a switch. You use all the switches that you've learned to turn on in your life. Say that.
Wow, that's fascinating. You grew up 2 blocks away from the Jackson's Five. Tell me about that experience. Like, did you talk to them? Like, did you talk to Michael Jackson and stuff? Did you play with
Oh,
them in the
Michael Jackson
neighborhood?
was more my age. Michael Jackson was probably 9 years younger. I think he's 9 years younger than me, maybe more. The thing that you do, we're a close knit group. Gary High School, which is high school I went to, Gary Roosevelt, they lived next door to the high school. Okay. And my
Yes.
family, whether they're teachers or principal or whatever, was involved with the high school. So, you're all right there. And my mother, worked on their grandmother's feet, being a podiatrist. Kind of like how with Jill. And then um, they came down to Indiana University while I was going to school in Bloomington. And I worked with another guy from Gary, and they came down on $600 to do 2 I pledged Kappa Alpha Psi on Indiana University's Alpha chapter with Kappa Alpha Psi. So when they came down, I was talking to them. They know we were all from Gary and Michael, like, big nice afro and all that kind of stuff. Now, I was sitting there talking to him. I said, "You just some five people from one. When they're going to be pretty accept them, okay?" But
Yes.
now we went down to do a talent show. $600, including gas. I came down on Ricky D. Brown, 6 or 7 of them. But either way, the the thing you learn from that. So what I said to them is what I believe myself. I told them, I told this to Michael Jackson. I said, "Look, man, I keep singing like you're doing. You're gonna be dead one day." A few months later, Diana Ross came down, was doing some talent show. He was like reviewing it and stuff like that. And she heard him sing. And he asked him to do a demo tape to Barry Gordy, which is about 200 miles away from Gary. and the rest of it is history. So in that little environment in Gary, there was a lot of talent. Paul Malden, Borman, the astronaut. You don't know about your city. Then you're outside of Chicago, so you know you're there. Being close to the lake and being close to family and things like that, and being able to enjoy the beaches and all that was a very good upbringing. My father was very good at the planning. We had a garden and all that kind of stuff. And he knew everybody. So he knew people with fresh eggs, chicken, I don't know. You know, people system of people were like-minded that liked him that, man, eggs were nowhere near the price they are now. It was special, by the way, that thing. Bigger too. You know, not none of this small stuff, look like burgers. We're talking about mixing. Those upbringings really helped me solidify who I am today.
Wow, that's the. I mean, there's so much going on, like business, where you grew up, your environment, your mindset. It's admirable. So, if this podcast were replayed 50 years from now, what would you want people to remember about you?
Conversation you and I had, I want them to remember that because one of the things about podcasts and delivering value to others who may not hear it, these are the methods that I think are going to be going more in the future. It's very important. Remember now, we're two African Americans talking about quantum and what we do. You're doing it through an electronic vehicle that wasn't available 15, 20, 30 years ago. You didn't even talk about it. So there is an evolution of change. I'm not going to see that evolution of change. That people that look like you and me want to achieve objectives that some may think that are unreachable. They're really not. It's totally up to you. Like knowledge, you determine what it is you know and what you do with it. I want to remember that. Remember that people like-minded, like you know, got together to have a conversation, fluent, talking about things that are important. I enjoy what I do. I'm 76 years old. Right? I got my FAA small unmanned aerial system or drone pilot license when I was 74 years old. Out of 100, I scored 92. I would have been 100 when I got cocky. I got to study all the tests about the FAA and all that. That's why drones, you stop problem. I'm not here. You have to find something that you can do. That's what I want them to see 50 years from now that Frederic and Joe, they're going.
Yeah. Wow. It's just amazing because you got your FAA license at 74. That's when people retire. You're like people your age, that age, thinking about playing golf all day, but you
Well,
still
how do we
going.
go?
You still going.
No, let me respond. It's got things in there. For example, I'm an entrepreneur in an area where there's very few entrepreneurs that look like me or with my level of background. And I know that. You know, it's enormously powerful to allow you to enable, but you gotta work. You just can't go through it. You just can't let other be for the matter. You gotta work at it. You gotta put something in it to get something out of it. And again, who you invent. They don't invent you. Don't never let AI or anything like that invent you. Because we never did. We'll never know. Some people like AI and let it do all the things. Don't create it. So don't let it take over. That is one thing I'm really worried about. You put too much emphasis on it and all of a sudden you didn't do it the right way and it's worth something. They can't turn. Okay? They can take your $1 billion profit down to zero when you don't even know what happened. They made the decision to say, well, it's time for me to take some of your money, so I'm going to do it. Then bury it in its logic. You say, sure, calculated your profit. That is what people don't realize that it's developing its own way of thinking.
Yeah, that's a big danger of AI. So I want to respect your time. This has been such a powerful conversation. And I'm really thankful for all your expertise, everything you shared. It means a lot that you've taken time and you've taken us inside your journey. I really appreciate. And do you want to share if viewers want to connect with you, how would they connect with you?
Joe Reddix on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for 21 years. That's the best way to do it. And then Joseph at reddixgroup.com is my direct corporate email or white paper
Okay.
or even officer of LinkedIn. Okay.
All right. So if you like to connect with Joe or Tim, or learn more about what he's doing, we're going to drop all the links below. And again, Joe, thank you for your time today.
Stay blessed and thanks a lot for the opportunity. We'll be talking. This is not the last conversation we have. Just to
I'm looking forward to it.